lovelies, it's been a while, hasn't it? In today's video, I wanted to get a little bit nice and cozier and sit down with you and have a chat about perfectionism, because it's been a while since I have been here on YouTube. It's been a little bit over close to 2 months, and I wanted to discuss a few things that had been going on in my life, as well as the idea of trying to be perfect, which is something that many of you, I'm sure, have dealt with or had happened to you. And I wanted to go a little bit more into sort of the ways that I have dealt with perfectionism and how perhaps for you might be able to find something useful. So get a little bit cozy, get a drink if you have one, and come and sit with me in my little nook, in my little room, and let's get on to it. Hi, I'm Patty, for those of you new here on my channel, and for those who have been looking at my videos for a while now, I took a little bit of a YouTube break. Perth went through a lockdown a little bit while ago, in which in less than 24 hours our city shut itself down due to one person being infected with the coronavirus who had gone out into the community. And so our little city, shut itself down for a while, and I was a little bit stressed out during that period. So that was one of the reasons why I was a bit slower in going back on, because I was also seeing a surge of classes coming through to my other business that I have, and I had around 30% more business taking up some of my extra time that I normally would devote to YouTube. As well as, maybe a little bit personal here, I started dating again after not really going on any dates for close to a year during the pandemic, and it's been really, really good, because even though I am a bit rusty in terms of dating and I've never really been the type of person to go on dates so much, it has been a really good learning curve, and I am finding more about what I want, what I deserve, and also the types of things that I want in a partner and the types of things I want to be as a partner. So apologies for being a little bit late on having a new video, but here we are today, and here is my cute dog, Bruno, also. So I thought I would quickly explain a little bit first. So going into perfectionism. So anyone a perfectionist? If you are, raise your hand, because hey, you're not alone, and so many people in this world are perfectionists or recovering perfectionists, such as in my case. In terms of why people become perfectionists, in my opinion, I believe perfectionism starts from really young. Most of us at some point in time, unfortunately, have been told that even though our parents say they love us unconditionally, it's not necessarily the case, and conditional love is often something that we are faced with. Whether or not you do something right in terms of getting the right grades, doing the right sort of lifestyle, being true to yourself, or being true to what your family thinks you should be true to be, those are things that can cause a friction when it comes to people who want to be loved. And when we are told that we can only be loved in certain criteria, that often creates a dissonance between us, and it often causes perfectionist tendencies. So in terms of me, when I was younger, same case, I went through a lot of difficult times when I was in my teenage years to early 20s, because I dropped out of university. I went straight into working. I worked a lot of entry-level jobs for a long time, and my parents despaired over the type of person that I would be. And to be honest, I remember traveling a lot and finding a little bit of rebellion in that travel. But however, that didn't mean that I didn't want to please them. I did. I very much wanted to please them, and that also showed up in a perfectionist side for me. So for example, even though I didn't go to university, in terms of work, I worked myself really, really hard, harder than I ever thought that I ever expected for anybody else. I also was really cruel to myself when I didn't do something that I thought was right. And it was part of the reason why I didn't perform well in academics for a long time, because I thought that if I didn't hand in my assignment perfectly as I thought it should be, then it wasn't going to be good enough, and therefore I would drag out assignments later and later. And this is not a proud thing to admit, but I failed 10 units in my academic life, and that was majority of it because I was dealing with perfectionism and I was terrified of not doing really good in my work. So you are not alone. And for me, as a recovering perfectionist, this still pops up sometimes for me. For example, in terms of my own self-talk, I know that over the past month and a bit, I have been a little bit cruel to myself in terms of YouTube and showing up and saying that I was going to create a video. No one told me that I was doing badly, but my brain told me I was doing badly. However, it's something that I'm working on, and I wanted to share a little bit about how you can change from being a perfectionist to being a recovering perfectionist. So first of all, the main thing when it comes to perfectionism is that in reality, perfectionists are really, really afraid. We use our perfection to actually create this image of ourselves that no one can ever say anything against, no one can ever say that we're not good enough, and we also get praise for our actions. And this combination creates this strict, rigid image of ourselves that is so hard to maintain. It is so unrealistic for everyone in the world. And being able to recognize that perhaps you have these sorts of tendencies is a huge first step. So let me say that again, that's a huge first step, okay? And if that's where you are right now, I'm really proud of you for even thinking to click on this video and considering the fact that you might have a perfectionist problem, okay? So when you realize you have a perfectionist problem, talking about that fear, it's likely you fall into 3 areas, okay? Depending on how you deal with fear can often show up in how you are a perfectionist. For example, there are probably around 3 types of fears. So for example, there is my type, which is the fight mode. There's also the flight mode, which I'm sure you've heard of, and there's also the freeze mode. So these 3 areas, for example, in my case, as a perfectionist, I remember rebelling against my parents. I remember being upset by my own self, disappointed in my own self for not being able to learn something perfectly in one way after one try, and throwing, for example, I was practicing wearing kimono and I couldn't tie my kimono the way I thought I should be able to tie it, and therefore I remember throwing things around the room and getting really mean and upset at myself and giving up essentially completely at the end of it. And that's how I dealt with it. I go into fight mode, which is probably surprising for anyone who's ever met me, but I'm a small tiny person, and yet you want to start a fight, I will start a fight. Not as much anymore, but I remember back when I was young, I would have a lot of arguments. And then there's those types of people who, for example, might have the flight tendency. And you see this as these people leaving conversations, shutting down. These are people who get anxious and then don't leave their houses. They are people who believe that they want to just be able to avoid any situation, so they won't even go to events. These anxious behaviors are symptoms of a flight pattern, okay? And then there's those who freeze. And the freezing ones are often quite similar in the fact that they don't know what to do. They just go blank. And those are the types of people you might see sometimes who would normally be very charismatic or be very connected or communicative to you, but then they just stop working as if someone had turned off a switch, and they have no answers and they have no way of being able to deal with the situation, and they just essentially give it up completely. And for those people, also signs of perfectionism, because in their heads they're probably feeling that they can't do anything. Anything that they do try is not going to work, and if they just stopped, then this problem wouldn't exist anymore. So how do we change? How do we change from these stages of being into a capable stage of handling our fears and moving towards action and being okay with the imperfect? First of all, something that I had to do and realize was that it's crazy, but there's actually loads of signs of imperfection around us. And it sounds funny because every day in social media, in magazines, in TV, everywhere we go, there are images of perfection. And I saw them everywhere when I was younger. But nowadays, I look for imperfection everywhere I go. I look for the spelling mistake in an article. I look for the dust in someone's room. I look for the crack in a bowl. I look for the weed that's growing up between the pavement. And I find beauty in it. I stop and think to myself, oh good, it's okay. And I see that also in people too. And because I recognize that other people can be imperfect, for example, I remember reading a quote by Julie Andrews when she was talking to her husband on the eve of her going back onto Broadway. She said, I think to her husband, she said that, I am so afraid of doing this, even though I have accolades and I have awards. I am so afraid. And he goes, honey, of course you're going to be afraid. Fear is always going to be a part of you, essentially. If I'm remembering this quote correctly, please tell me in the comments down below if I'm completely off. If not, maybe I'm just lying to you. But from what I remember of this quote, he said that it's okay. And fear is always going to be a part of you, but you can still work through it. And if Julie Andrews can have fear and still go on stage and freaking be Mary Poppins and be amazing and the dame that she is, then anyone in the world can also move towards action. And I look for this in our examples that we see. For example, if you love Kim Kardashian, did you know that she has psoriasis and she has spots all over her legs? She's not perfect. I have psoriasis too, so hey, maybe I'm a little bit like Kim. But the point is that being perfect is exhausting, and the moment that you recognize that the world is full of imperfections and they still exist and still continue to thrive and flourish and survive, is almost this amazing key that unlocks in your head, and you go, wow, I can be me. I don't have to be perfect me. I can just be me in the uncomfortable, awkward, sweaty, gross, lazy, messy state that I can be sometimes. And when you give yourself the permission to be that person, you suddenly give yourself a lot more freedom to become even better than you are before, because you now know that your life moves in seasons. You can be messy sometimes, but you're also going to be really great sometimes too. You can deliver poor work, but you're also going to really try hard to give good work, because you've given yourself that space and freedom to be able to research more, to be able to not be afraid. And I think that in itself is a beautiful thing. We can learn from nature so much in that way, that the world and us, we too move through seasons. So going back to a little bit about how a small action that you can do towards making yourself a little bit more free from perfection is start to notice imperfections around the world. Talk to yourself as if you were a friend to yourself. Would you say mean things to yourself if you were actually saying those things to a friend? Probably not, I would say. Thirdly, sometimes your brain lies to you and tells you people are saying really mean things to you. But in truth, do you have physical evidence of this? And if so, are they actually someone you really care about? And if they aren't, why do you care? Okay, so these are some things that you should think about. And if you consider it this way, perfectionism would just create the sameness in the world, sameness everywhere. And in fact, it's our uniqueness, it's our imperfections that make us unique and beautiful and allow us to create amazing things in this world. And without that, I think the world would be so much of a sadder place if we didn't have that. it creates difference in us. And I think that there should be more appreciation for difference in this world. So I'm gonna stop it here in case this video goes on for too long, but I hope you really enjoyed a little bit of my thoughts on perfectionism, and I hope that you are taking a little bit more care on how you talk to yourself. And please let me know down below if this is the type of video that you would like to see more of, because I want to be able to give you lots and lots of tips on how I have also changed my life towards something that is a lot more positive, a lot more brighter. And that's something that I want to create in these videos too. So I'm trying a little bit of a different style, and so let me know if this video was useful to you. Hit the like button, as always. And I'd love to see your faces here more often, so subscribe if you want to be friends. And I can't wait to see you in the next video, lovelies. Take care. All my love from Perth, Australia, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.